Welcome back to the 7th grade Mustache. On today's episode, in honor of Black History Month, we'll be speaking on just that, Black history, African history, the world's history, the true history that has been hidden from many of you for many, many, many years. And so we start by speaking on the fact that a lot of these people that we'll be speaking on will not be the normal run-of-the-mill Negroes that you are used to hearing about. We're not going to talk about Frederick Douglass or Sojourner Truth and none of that. All that, like regular ass Black history, we're going to put that on pause and we're going to put on a scuba gear and get deep and talk about some of the unsung heroes of African Black history. So let us begin.
If we do talk about the normal ones, we're going to talk about facts that you didn't realize about them.
Yeah,
if we're going to hit you with the stuff, the guys you've heard of before. You're going to find out why they really were who they were.
Like I said, we're going to keep this shit interesting. I don't want to focus on none of this normal ass shit you're used to hearing all the time. But listen, I'm going to start by drawing on a news story that I heard recently. This week, in the week of February the 6th, 2021, there is a charter school in Ogden, Utah, with a Japanese headmaster who is canceling and removing Black history studies from the curriculum because there is an abundance or maybe a handful of white parents that have written in letters asking to have Black history removed from the students' curriculum. Now, these are elementary and junior high school kids. These are high school kids. But still, it's important because these are young kids. And so the sooner you learn about Black history, the more open-minded you'll be as a child. So if you remove that from the curriculum very early, you're already creating a deficit of information and truth in the minds of these children. So I thought that was relevant to put that out there because, once again, these people are attempting to whitewash history. And so let's start with something really cool. Let's start also in honor of Super Bowl Sunday with a fact that many of you did not know about. One of the very first or the first Black quarterbacks in the National Football League was a man named Fritz Pollard. Fritz Pollard was the very first Black quarterback, and he went on to play for some years. But this is the pre-Super Bowl era, so the time before the Super Bowls. But Fritz was his successors were Joe Lillard, George Taliaferro, Willie Thrower, and George Brackens. Now, in the era of the Super Bowl era, starting in 1968 or in the 60s, the first Black quarterback of the Super Bowl era was Marlon Briscoe. A lot of people didn't know that, but this cat was from home. He was from Omaha.
Yes.
Score one for the home team. And I remember that you were telling me that you got some info about this cat, that you learned a couple things about him.
Look, he went to it's called South Magnet now, but it was called South back in the day. He went to South. Then he went to UNO, which is, yes, back then it was called Omaha University, which is now called the University of Omaha. It used to be University of Nebraska and Omaha, UNO. Basically, he lit up the field as a high school player, college player. So then he gets drafted to the NFL. So he goes to Denver. So this is like 60. What year was it? 68, 67, somewhere
68.
around there. So he gets drafted to the NFL, and he does not. He gets benched. They bench him. They don't let him play. So he talks about his experience. So the starting quarterback gets hurt, and the backup quarterback ain't doing shit. So they stick the brother in at the end of a game, brings him back, almost wins the game. So they let him start the next game. So he owns, when you look up the rookie quarterback record for touchdowns in a season, he had 14. Played a game and a half, had 14 touchdowns. Never started again. He had to become a wide receiver, played for like 7-8 years, had a bunch of teams. But if you look at the magician, Briscoe the magician.
That's a cool nickname.
This apparently he's still alive. Like I said, I sent my boy, I sent Roscoe a video of this guy, but he's from Omaha. So how do we not know this? I found out a little while ago. And the thing is, like, it's so hard. Like, this is my boy. So y'all don't know how tight me and Roscoe really are. You think you do, but it's hard to blow my boy's mind. So when I blew my boy's mind, he's like, I'm like, I heard him through the phone. Like, yeah, bro. The rookie touchdown record for quarterbacks is a brother. The rookie
from the crib
for quarterbacks is 14 touchdowns, and it belongs to a brother from Omaha, Nebraska.
Yeah.
And so that it's super, super frustrating when you find out this stuff. Super frustrating because let me explain to you what white supremacy is. See, you think white supremacy is burning crosses in people's yards and shit like that. No, this is white supremacy. This is when somebody knows that you're better, but wants to keep this lie going that a black man is not smart enough or a black man's not talented enough. It takes almost 30, 40 years, 60, almost 50 years for to have a black quarterback be commonplace. Next black quarterback, don't forget Terry Bradshaw. When they went to the Super Bowl, his backup was a brother. So there was black quarterbacks, but the fact of the matter is you have obvious talent, you have obvious ability, you have obvious intelligence, and you've even performed better than anybody else. Yet they still bench you. You got to change your position just to exist. Yeah, white supremacy ain't what you think it is. It's something completely different. It's white supremacy was their affirmative action. So that's what you need to understand. It's just the opposite. You're picking somebody only because, like, hey, I want to keep this stereotype going, even though my eyes ain't lying to me.
Listen,
so yeah,
white supremacy is the Mona Lisa smile of hatred.
Yep.
Very subtle, very subtle, but it's there.
The longer you stare at it, you don't quite see it. You know, everybody sees something different. But okay, so this is something you know about now. There's some disputes over this one, but the first shogun of Japan is black. Now, the problem is the term shogun comes after him. So when you look up first shogun of Japan, you're going to see 1192, Minamoto Yoritomo. But if you look up the person who's given the title before him, between 794 and 1185, yeah, you're going to see, drum roll please, Sakanoyu no Tomararu. He is their first shogun of Japan, but the problem was the word shogun comes after him. So a lot of times when you look up the first shogun of Japan, you're going to see this light-skinned dude. But if you look up the African shogun, you're going to see that the dates don't apply. The dates don't line up. Well, how does this man exist before this guy? Quite frankly, because the term shogun didn't exist yet. So when you recognize the first warrior, first man to be given the shogun was black soldier called Sakanoyu no Tomararu. He had become the Sai Tashio, commander-in-chief of the expeditionary force against the East Barbarians during the military campaign against the Emishi people of northern Japan. Yes, the first show. So, in fact, they got a movie talking about the first black samurai. Fuck that. This guy was before that.
But wait. Hold on a second. You can't just gloss over the black samurai though, because Yasuke, his name is Yasuke. His Japanese name was Yasuke.
This is your subject. Go ahead.
Yeah. Now Yasuke was actually, he has a cool story because he arrived in Japan during the medieval warring era. So when there was all this civil war,
feudal era.
When all this civil war is happening in Japan, he arrived in 1579 with Italian Jesuit missionaries. Okay, and so they had actually visited other countries, India as well. So this brother had been doing some globetrotting. He'd been getting around, but he finally arrives in Japan. And in Japan, he becomes the personal bodyguard of Oda Nobunaga. Now, that name to Japanese historians is actually very popular and well known because he is considered a hero to many or an asshole to others. He is kind of like, he's a blend of Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump and the dude from Shogun Assassin all rolled into one person. So this is the problem though. He, I'm talking about Oda Nobunaga, is responsible for the destruction of the Iga ninja empire. So he went into the mountains of Iga in Japan and destroyed their homeland and killing a lot of the ninjas up there. So he didn't destroy all of them because a lot of these ninjas, the Iga ninjas, wound up becoming the personal bodyguards of his successor, who was Ieyasu. So here's the thing. Now, Yasuke, who was an enslaved African, impressed Nobunaga because he saved Nobunaga's life when somebody attempted to kill him. So this is the problem I have with this. I think it's hella cool that there's a black samurai and he is actually visible in Japanese history and world history. The only problem is he was probably around when they went into the land of Iga and killed a lot of these ninja children and women and families. So I am partial to ninjutsu. So that's why I have a big problem with this, but I got respect.
It has a bias.
I have respect for Yasuke at the same time. So you see, history is shades of gray. It's not black and white. There's things that's really cool about it, but the more you dig, you may find out shit you don't like about it. So carrying on, Yasuke, he was actually, they said okay. So basically, they said that he died with Oda Nobunaga. See, so basically, when your master dies, when your feudal lord dies, then you're forced to commit seppuku. You have to commit suicide. So they don't really know what happened to Yasuke, whether he was killed in combat or whether he committed seppuku. But they do know the fact that he did attain the rank of samurai. He was given armor and carried a sword in combat. So that is huge because not every guy on the battlefield had a cool ass job. But this guy, just imagine this though. This dude was probably a physical specimen. All right. And he came through just wrecking shop. And they're like, oh, yeah. We drafting this guy. We want him as the point guard on our team so we can dunk on motherfuckers. Like, we want this guy. We want this dude. And so that's why, they saw him as like, they saw his potential and they're like, all right, cool. We want Yasuke. The fact that this story is finally coming to light now is mind blowing because I didn't know about it as a child. I was studying African history as a child and I was deep into Japanese history as a child. And I didn't even hear about this until recently. But then it makes you wonder, what does it take for stories like this to become unearthed and reach the public eye? There's probably so many stories out there still about great black African people that still haven't been uncovered yet.
Great men and women. The reason I brought the Shogun first is because, one, he was before him. Two, it's frustrating because here's what Europeans do in white supremacy. The only stories they let out were the ones with a touch of slavery on them, like an enslaved African. That's their narrative. We existed in these places before slavery. And when you start looking at these numbers, sometimes the numbers don't add up. That's one of the things that Roscoe does. Like one of the stories I told, he looked at slavery was over this. And we were talking about the two sisters, and Roscoe looked up like slavery was over at this point. That's deep because they love to use that narrative for slavery, why we're where we are, when the truth was we were already there. That's what we're trying to get across to everybody. These black stories, African history stories, whatever you want to call them, however you want to label them, a lot of them exist before slavery. And that's why I brought up that black shogun, because according to this, he was 794, the Heinen period. So he was a shogun back then, is 1185. This is what kind of before slavery as we know it, right? So when you start hearing that, you start to realize black folks were doing extraordinary things before slavery. That's the point we're trying to make. So they love to give you that narrative that, okay, we were over here already and we brought the slaves to help us do the physical labor because we're not strong enough or whatever the shit is. That's bullshit. We were already here. I remember our fourth grade teacher was explaining some shit to me that I didn't get. And she said, well, when the white folks came to America, they enslaved the people that were here first. So you automatically think of these yellow-faced red men. No. When they got to the southeast, which is Florida, when they got to the islands, the reason they enslaved the people there and started doing the whole sugar plantation and all that kind of shit, because they were dark people. They looked like Africans. And they knew that when you were in Haiti and when you were in Jamaica, that they didn't have enough people to do this bloody ass work. So they had to bring in Africans, not because they were stronger, it's because that this brutal ass work of this sugar farming was killing folks. And they only had let's say they had 100,000 people. They were killing 5,000 to 6,000 people a month. your population would run out. They brought the Africans in because they looked like the people that were already there. There were already black and brown folks in the southeast of America, in the east of America. You know, when you look at these rappers like Oh Dirty Bastard, they're Shittacock, or when you look about the Poconoke tribe, them is some dark ass Indians. Those are not the Indians that we were told about. These people are much darker. Even when Andrew Jackson talks about killing the Seminoles, he said, I came here to kill Indians. I've been shooting niggas for a week. There's a letter when General Andrew Jackson was killing these Seminoles. He says, I've been shooting niggas for 2 weeks. I don't, please forgive me. I'm sure the language was something like that. I'll find the letter.
No, don't apologize for that. You're talking about somebody that's killing black people. There's nothing to apologize about.
I apologize for paraphrasing because I don't know the exact wordage he used. So what we're trying to show you is that the only stories that make it through are the stories where there's some slavery involved. Like we always talk about Shaka Zulu, the great general. Man, there was a lot of other great generals out there. And many of them was female. How about that? So this is where we're going to mess around. This is the area that we're going to mess around in. One of the people we talked about was the first African emperor of Rome. And y'all like, oh, ain't no such thing. Nope. Look up. I want to say the name right because we were just talking. I don't want to blow this. Septimius Severus, born in northern Africa.
Septimius Severus.
Septimius Severus. Yes, brother is black. I'm black. And so the crazy thing is, when you look at pictures and paintings of this man, some of them are whitewashed, some of them aren't. But it's all agreed upon where he was born, North Africa. And some of them got him looking he looked like a super brother on this one. This one, he looks got good hair on this one. The bottom line. Roman Emperor Septimius Servius is black. Look it up. The whole idea that these boundaries that exist now, and that's another problem, even when you deal with the whole Europe and African continent, back in the day, the waters were different. They were much more closer. The original inhabitants of Europe are black. You know, they get lighter as things happen. The first ones we know, we talked about this before. France is where the first white folks were 30,000 years ago, blah, blah, blah. So it's not, most of Europe was black before it got white. You had barbarians coming from the north. So we're trying to show you guys that this Black History thing it's not relegated to 1 month. You dig?
Okay, so let's keep the pre-slavery theme going. Okay, so let's speak about a man named Cheikh Anta Diop from Senegal. This guy really put down some numbers in world history. So he started when he was writing his thesis paper to receive his doctorate. And he was turned down 7 times. His paper was turned down and refused 7 times because he was writing with the view that Egypt was an African country, that the people that built the pyramids were Africans, that this happened before the Arabs arrived, and these were the people of Moreau, black Africans. So the people in France at the university system that was issuing out the doctorates and taking his dissertation and his thesis paper, they refused him 7 times. So on that 7th time, he then began to publish books because this Eurocentric system simply could not tolerate the truth. And so therefore, he went on to write books such as Pre-Colonial African History, Pre-Colonial Africa. And he also wrote Civilization or Barbarism. Cheikh Anta Diop is a hero in all of Africa. He is an icon. He had great accomplishments under his belt, such as having a radiocarbon dating laboratory at the university. So
he had to start his own. He had to start his own because they weren't accepting what he was saying. They would not accept the dates. UNESCO, I want to say archaeologists at UNESCO, they had to finally start believing him because he was proving them wrong. He was like, hey, no, this date is this. This site was dated with this. And he's using radiocarbon dating on the wood and stuff they're finding because you can't do rock, but you're doing the wood and you're finding out, okay, this settlement here is much older than they thought. And it started killing all their numbers. And so again, white supremacy does not stand up well under science. I know it sounds crazy, but it don't. And so he blew their minds. And then you got Ivan Van Sertima who comes after him.
Yep, there you go. That's right. Come on.
So you got John Henry Clark, Ivan Van Sertima, and Sheikh Anta Diop. These are the great minds, and these are the ones that kill white people. And here when you talk about Ivan Van Sertima,
but we talking about, we say kill white people as in like these guys are the Delta Force that's fighting against the reptilian booty scratchers. Okay, these are the guys that are fighting against the.
The numbers of the white supremacists cannot stand up to these guys. And so the one you really got to look out for is Ivan Van Sertima. He has a terrible accent, but there's a lot of videos with him out there.
Well, I mean, he's from Guyana though. That's why he has an accent.
Yes. He's from South America.
It sounds weird because it sounds like a dude that's trying to fake a British accent crossed with a Spanish accent. I'm like, what the fuck?
Cougar Jiggins, and I am here to entertain you. And so when you start dealing with him, he is a linguist by nature. And so he said I was arguing Sheikh Anta Diop, said these numbers you don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, yeah, no, bro, and he starts talking about language wise, and he said there were so many similarities between these East African languages and these native languages we're finding in America. So the book that we had for our Black Studies class in high school was They Came Before Columbus. That's Ivan Van Sertima. And he's like, yeah. And so he said, I found 25 similarities between these native languages and the languages of West Africa. So he used that as a springboard. Then he starts doing research, and he starts messing with these German archaeologists, and he starts finding out that like a lot of the interesting stuff, like you're gonna laugh. Like we always hear about those heads in the Olmec heads. There was like 19 or 20 of them, and this, that, and another.
In Mexico.
Do you know? Do you know that there are 5 of those heads are missing?
Right.
Yeah. Who steals a 5-ton head? Because many of this information are in private collections. So he meets with this guy. He's a conch. He's a German archaeologist, and he's a conch. Now, if you don't know what a conch is the original royal family of Germany. The original royal family of Germany is black. Many of these European royal houses, you always see a black face on the shield of the crest. Or you see a lion. Pay attention. Ain't no lions in Europe. Such Lionheart. They're telling you that person has African descent. And, little tricks here and there you don't recognize. So he meets with this German guy down in South America, and he has thousands of archaeology things that are black in nature, and it breaks that. So then they start looking at hybrid fruits and vegetables. Now, why is hybrid fruits and vegetables so important? Because in West Africa they find all these. I want to say they find all these cornfields that are buried like under the sediments. Like corn doesn't exist in Africa. Corn comes from South America and North America. It shows a connection between the two continents. You have hybrid foods. Now, of course, the white folks said bird flies over and the bird shits a seed out and they mix and this, that. He's like, okay, that's fine if you have 1 or 2 plants. But when somebody's cultivating these plants that are hybrids, it shows there's North American and African context.
That's not going to happen in the bird's stomach.
Exactly. So the other one that me and my brother Roscoe like to talk about.
Hold on. Wait. Hang on. We got to stay on Ivan Van Sertima because he came up with the concept of 2 Africas, one before and the other after the African Holocaust. So, but he also is known for bringing to light the 300 BC astronomical observatory that was found in northwest Kenya in 300 BC. And he is known for bringing this to the public's attention. So this guy, Ivan Van Sertima, he was carrying on the work of Sheikh Anta Diop. And so, so these books, like they came before Columbus, or pre-colonial Africa, or the destruction of black civilization, African civilization, destruction of African civilization from 2000 BC to 2000 AD. These books, they make your head explode as a small child because you're not taught these things in elementary school or junior high school.
No, you're told just the opposite. You're told the opposite. It's not that you're not taught them. You're actually told opposite information. That's what fucks with you. It's one thing to have something not known to you. It's another thing when you're told, you were a slave. Like, well, when did I start? No, you were a slave. It fucks with you because also if you ever look up what's his name, Frank Joseph, he's that white guy. If you ever look at Malcolm X, you'll see during Malcolm X rally there were a bunch of American Nazis, and you're like, okay, the Nazi party is after World War II. There was an American Nazi party, but these were American socialists, and Frank Joseph was one of them. And Frank Joseph later on, he's like, yeah, look, I love black people now. I made a mistake, and so, but he starts doing this research, and you find where in like 1200. Is it BC or whatever? They find a cave in Illinois that's full of a bunch of African artifacts and European artifacts that basically they were making a pilgrimage from back and forth. Black people, white people were going back and forth. Bottom line, what I'm saying is that the contact is that this is what Ivan Van Sertima specialized in. The contact between North America and Africa, South America and Africa existed long before we thought it did. And they're finding these civilizations that prove it. They find these civilizations, the Olmec heads. Many of them are saying that they're West African. Now, you got some people arguing that. But one thing they can't argue is that when they start doing the carbon dating and doing the people in South America, there were black folks in South America before there were folks up in North America. That kills it. And these people genetically come from, the South Pacific, Australia, Papua New Guinea, New Macedonia, and all that kind of stuff. They have DNA with them, and they exist. And that's the other part where they talk about this whole land bridge up in North America, that they came from Siberia. The problem is, as you do your research, they always push that date back. Well, 4,000 years ago, we had Asians come over the Bering Strait. Oh, wait a minute. You found some black people in North America that are older? Oh, well, they came over 8,000 years ago over the Bering Strait. You found more black people in North America? They always push that date back. Now the date went from 4,000 to 6,000 because recently
Wait a minute.
6,000.
But let me just shoot up some big old bazooka holes in that bullshit real quick. Why would any black person travel that far through the snow? That's not gonna happen. First of all,
hold on. What they're saying is that they're saying the Asians. What they're saying is that the Native Americans in North America are Asian, and the Asians have rights. The reason they're doing that is they're trying to steal your land.
Yeah,
that narrative
I get that. But the whole idea about the 8,000-year-old Africans that are there, they didn't walk over a Bering Strait. They came on boats. They came on boats. Egyptian boats. They went all the way into the interior until they got to Colorado, and they went down to the Grand Canyon, which is why you find Egyptian mummies in the Grand Canyon, and the Smithsonian wants to cover that up and hide that.
Here's what hurts white people's feelings. Europe only had longitude. They didn't have latitude at a certain. I'm sorry, I got it back. They only had latitude at a certain time. There's a map called the Piri-Reyes map. When they find this map is like 1,000 years old, literally 1,000 years old, with accurate borders of these continents. In fact, they have when you look at this Piri-Reyes map, what blows people's minds, they have the coastline of Antarctica is perfect. Now, the coastline of Antarctica is covered by ice. How did this nigga do this shit? So the Piri-Reyes map predates Europeans having longitude. This map has longitude and latitude and is older than Europeans' knowledge of it. So that means who did it then? Black folks. This map was comprised from it's the same thing. When you talk about these Indians, these people in India knew about North America. They knew about specific things in North America. That means they were coming from India. So our people have been traveling the world a lot sooner than people thought. And this idea that the only way for you to get there is by walking. So then how did the black folks get to Australia? Because the Australians tell you we came from Africa. They're telling their verbal knowledge says, yeah, we came from Africa at this time. We've been here 48,000
But years. You have to remember that our episode on Negro Esoterica Part 1, where we discuss how there was a landmass in the Indian Ocean in between Africa and India, and which sank. It didn't sink overnight, it sank gradually. But while this landmass was there, that's how you got the dark-skinned Dravidian people in India today. That famous black golfer with straight hair, something Sam J or J or something like that. That guy is an African. He's African. He has African ancestry. He's a Dravidian. That's what they call the untouchables of India. And that's how you got these dark Negroid people in Australia. And this culture that they have is so different from anything that's in Africa because it's super, super old. And it comes from the island landmass that was over there connecting these areas. So that's how you get these black people in these. See, what I'm saying is these Africans walked to those areas. They rode horses or carts or flew spaceships over into those areas. Okay, so there was landmass connecting these spots together, and then now they're submerged underwater. So that's how you get these Africans in these places that didn't make sense now.
But hold on. But the first statement you also made was that we had boats and ships back then. We had ship technology. That's what people try to downplay. If you want to blow somebody's
mind. Oh no. Wait. Yes, I'm talking about North America. But they want to wonder how the black people got to Australia and how they got into India from Africa. Yeah, there was boats, of course. But the bigger aha is that there is a landmass on the floor of the Indian Ocean that was once inhabited, that had a high civilization on it. It was called the continent of Mu. Yeah. Go ahead, man.
The reason it gets the reason it gets so deep when it talks about that is Mu had three races. They had a white race, an Asian race, and a black race. They talk about this stuff. They have a lot of information. Mu had settlements. Part of Mu is Indian Ocean. Part of Mu is the Pacific Ocean. Mu is huge. And
well, there's Mu and Lemuria. There's two different ones.
Hold up. Technically, what they're saying is Lemuria is the Greek word for Mu. That because you know how same way they call it like the Punic Wars. Punia was Carthage. They're saying that Mu is the same place as Lemuria. That's just a Greek word because the Greeks and the Romans like to use their own words for shit. They're saying that Mu was huge and Mu had a lot of settlements. Is what the
way I understand it is that there's two different land masses, and one was further east into the Pacific Ocean, and one was in the Indian Ocean. So the Mu, I'm sorry, so I had it mixed around. So Lemuria is in the Indian Ocean, and then Mu is in the further Pacific Ocean near the Hawaiian Islands. If you look at if you look at the original Hawaiians, and my father used to always tell me this, he said, if you want to see what an original Hawaiian looks like, they got red Negro hair and big ass bell pepper nose and lips. They don't look like Asian people.
When you look up King Kamehameha, he has nappy hair. Now,
it looked like a cross between Malcolm X, KRS-One, and The Rock.
Here's the deal.
I know, that's a hell of a visual.
Black folks are all over the place. The last queen of Hawaii was black. When you read this stuff, you look up the stuff, it drives you crazy because you're told that there's an Asian influence. The Japanese influence came during
Listen, if you look at New Zealand and you look at the Maori population,
the Maori people
in New Zealand, there's what's crazy about it is you won't find it in textbooks. But if you look up poetry slams from New Zealand, you see and this is the interesting part about history and genes. Women pass on and carry a lot of the stories and the history more than men do, and they carry on the genes, which is why if you go to Puerto Rico, if you go to the Dominican Republic, if you go to New Zealand, which I began this story with, is that if you want to see where the ancestral genes are, don't look at the men, look at the women, because the women always carry the recessive genes. Which means that if you want to see people who have Negro hair and dark skin in the Caribbean, and it's a island that's mixed with Europeans like Cuba and Puerto Rico is, the women will carry those African genes. So therefore, in the Maori people of New Zealand, you have all these poetry slams now, right? Which is basically poor people speaking out against oppression and expressing themselves.
It's rap music. You're talking out against.
And so basically, when you listen to these poetry slams, it's all these poor ass kids with nappy ass hair that don't fit into the rest of society because of the way their African genes are being expressed.
Look, when you talk about the islands, you're talking about like Jamaica, and so you talk about the Taino people. But a lot of these black folks in Jamaica, I saw this one brother going off. He said when they did the research, when they start doing the research, the archaeology in Jamaica, there are no Amerindians. There are no Amerindian bones. What he's telling the Taino people were black people. They're saying this whole story about the land bridge and people coming over and these Asians. There are no Amerindians. What he's saying, there are no Asian DNA over here. Now, the oldest settlement they found was underwater in Mexico, had Asian DNA. But guess what? They just found another underground settlement they find in Mexico that's 50,000 years old, and they're just not checking the DNA.
Yeah, but the crazy part is it was a mine. It wasn't just it wasn't pots and pottery
yes.
and nice carvings to like put on some rich white person's wall. No. This was a mine. They were actively digging for resources. That means that is evidence of high civilization.
That's longevity. That's not. Well, here's the other thing that Van Sertima talks about when he talks about the contact with North Americans. The North Americans had several words. They have 25 words. They had their own words for stars, but they had 25 words for constellations. They were all African based. Then they talk about the North Americans had their own word for gold. But when they talked about certain types of gold, what did they call it? Ghana. So why would North Americans call gold Ghana? Ghana. Ghana is West Africa. There's a country in West Africa called Ghana now, but Ghana back in the day was a much larger province. Modern day Ghana has nothing to do with old Ghana. So understand that now. So when you talk about Ghana, Songhai, and Mali, old Ghana was much bigger than modern day Ghana.
Yes,
it was a different place.
But you also have to understand that the people of old Ghana, of ancient Ghana, were actually descendants of Atlantis, were African black descendants of the area that was Atlantis. Now, remember, we talked about that in Negro Esoterica. If those of you who want to go check out Negro Esoterica, it's in that episode.
Yeah. No, I'm saying slow down. Don't hit him in the face with your dick right off the bat. You
smell it.
You got to finesse him, my nigga. You got to finesse him. So what I'm saying, if the African word for gold is Ghana, the reason Ghana is called Ghana, because Ghana had so much gold. That's like calling people, hey, Dick. Why they call him Dick? Because he got a big dick. Well, Ghana was called Ghana because it had all this gold. Ghana means gold. So if you have North Americans using the word, even they found these 3 spears. So Columbus comes. This is Columbus. This is your boy. When Columbus comes over, and they find a settlement, and these people have these 3 spears, and they find these 3 spears that are gold tip spears. And so the scientists do the metallurgy on these spears. They're the exact same identical spears that are found in Ghana. It's 4 parts gold, 6 parts nickel, 5 parts steel, and they do this metallurgy. And so wait a minute, how come you have physical proof that these people had contact with Africans, or that these people are a mixture of Africans? In South America, they find there's a grave with these 7 guys in these different graves, and every year they go out there and they plant a banana tree. Bananas are not native to South America. I think they're native to Malaysia. That's the influence of these world travelers. Going back to what Roscoe is telling you, these people are world travelers. Strawberry, that's Arabs. Strawberry is not native to these different places, but that's what these people were doing as they came. They planted their crops. So you have these 7 dead Africans, and every year, because they brought bananas with them, so that what these people down in South America do as a tradition, they plant, and this shit's been going on for hundreds of years. Look, the reason we're doing this, we're talking about the Black history you don't know. So I don't like talking about slavery, but let me talk about one story that nobody likes to fuck with. They laugh, but they don't talk about. So, who knows who Bass Reeves is? If you're a white person out there, or a black person, have you ever heard of Bass Reeves?
If you watch the Watchmen TV show on HBO, you know who Bass Reeves is now.
No, hold it. You know now, but let me explain something to you. You knew before, because there was a TV show in the 50s and 60s, all the way up into the 80s, that I watched growing up that was based on Bass Reeves. What is that TV show called,
Mr. Roscoe?
The
Lone Ranger.
Excuse me, The Lone Ranger is based on a black
brother.
Man? So, the first time I read about this, I was in college. Or I think I graduated. I should say I was at work, and they have this. I'm reading this article that says there is a exhibit in the National Television Museum, Hall of Fame, whatever you want to call it, about the Lone Ranger, and it tells the true story where the Lone Ranger comes from. So you're like, okay, this sounds interesting, because I'm a fan of Lone Ranger. I like Tonto. I like the white man. So you start reading this article and you're like, the Lone Ranger is based on a black man named Bass Reeves. Oh shit! I got a lump in my throat. So you find out this black man named Bass Reeves, who was a slave. His slave master. See, that's another thing. When you read this story, you find out more and more about our brother Dane Calloway, who talks about slavery is not what you thought. Slavery was like a job. So you have a slave named Bass Reeves. His master is an old white man, and he teaches him how to do all this shit. He can shoot, ride, he can do everything. So he's doing all this stuff. And they're homies. Him and his master are homies, and he works for his master. His master dies, so the son inherits Bass Reeves. So now the son is his master. Well, guess what? Bass Reeves and his master are playing cards. The master accuses Bass Reeves, which is the son of the original master, of cheating at the card game. So he's like, I ain't no liar, I ain't no cheat. I gotta lie to you, motherfucker. So he beats the shit out of his master, beats this motherfucker's ass, and on the way out the door, beat his ass some more and leaves and goes to Oklahoma, which is a wild territory. So, see, when you listen to Dane Calloway, he tells you that these black Africans that you tell are Africans are Native Americans. Well, guess what? Bass Reeves knew the language of the Cree. He knew the language of the Seminole. He knew all Creek, I think the Creek or whatever the Indian. He knew all the Indian languages. They don't tell you how he knew these languages, but he knew all these languages. So he becomes a marshal, not a Texas Ranger, but he becomes a marshal in the territory of Oklahoma. And he catches like 2,000, 3,000 bad guys, kills like 46 people. He has like fucking Jordan numbers, man. He is the greatest lawman of all time. And here's where it gets even funnier. So, do you know how? What did he do to get people to go to his side, Mr. Roscoe? Do you know?
What do you do?
Well, you remember the Lone Ranger, how he would give people silver bullets? Where do you think that came from? Bass Reeves will give you a silver dollar. That's how he became known. Like, he's the guy that handed out silver dollars. Guess what? He was also a master of disguise.
So basically, he had informants. He's just saying he was paying his informants.
Yeah. Look, here's where it gets even crazier. Remember, the Lone Ranger was a master of disguise. Bass Reeves was a master of disguise. He would disguise himself. He would pretend to be whatever he was.
He was a fucking ninja.
So when you find out, so how do you? The true story of Bass Reeves is way more interesting than the television show that we grew up watching, loving. But here's the whole point. Here's the point of the story. Again, they love to say that we're slaves, but they don't want to talk about the slave that got away.
Oh, now stop right there. Stop right there. Because you're talking about the slaves that got away. What you don't hear enough about is the Africans that fought back against slavery on the continent of Africa. And one in particular was Queen Nzinga Mbande. She lived from 1583 until 1663. And she was the queen of the Ambundu kingdom of Ndongo, which is modern day Angola. And she ruled for 37 years. She fought against the Portuguese slave trade until her final days. So she was born into occupation. So when she was born, her father, the king, had already been fighting against these Portuguese. And the Portuguese had moved into their land. But they only got a foothold when the king, before her father, asked the Europeans to help them resolve an issue with another tribe. Africans do this all the time. They always want to get white people involved with their problems with other black folks, and that is a mistake they continue to make to this day, because that's how those Portuguese got into Africa. So what happened is the king of that time, when the Portuguese arrived, they asked the Portuguese to help. The Portuguese went and did reconnaissance, checked out the enemy, surveyed the land and everything around it. They went back to Portugal. They brought more ships, more soldiers, and took over the port city. So now the port city was under control, and they would go into these African villages and decimate them, destroy them, kill anybody that fought back, and took the women and children and any of the men that they found worthy or usable. And so this went on for years and years. And so Nzinga was born. She was born from the concubine of the ruling king at the time. But she was the king's favorite daughter from one of his favorite concubine. And so therefore, because she was a woman, she wasn't the queen when her father died. Her brother had become the king. And so her brother sent her as an emissary to go and negotiate with these Portuguese when they came back on one of the many times. So The Portuguese come back and they send Nzinga in there to negotiate. And she is smart, so she realized that I can't defeat all these people right now. So she agrees to let them continue to take slaves, but they have to back off and move further away to the port, further to the ocean, closer to the ocean. And so they agree. This buys her enough time to build up her military forces, and she then proceeds to fight and slaughter many of these Portuguese to the point where they break camp and leave. So she put a serious dent in the African slave trade in the country of Angola, and she does not get enough respect and recognition for that. Yes, there is a huge copper statue of her on a horseback fighting against the Portuguese in Angola today. But for those young black girls who need somebody to look to for strength, look to Queen Nzinga. I first heard about Queen Nzinga in high school in a book called The Destruction of African Civilization from 2000 BC to 2000 AD by Chancellor Williams. Read that book. It's a terrific read.
Now, here's another queen of Africa you guys need to know about. Now, this is similar name, Yaninga. Now, here's the crazy part. Now, Yaninga, there's a statue of Yaninga in Burkina Faso. Now, you might ask, why is there a statue that? Yeah. So you're going to love this story. So there's an African king. I can't remember what nation it is. So his best warrior is his daughter. So his daughter, Yaninga, falls in love with this dude, right? And so, but it's not the guy that the king wants her to marry. So he's like, hey, I need you to do some work for me. But when you're done, you can marry who you want. So she's a general in his army, the best warrior he got. She goes and does the job. But when it's over, the father wants her to marry somebody else or some shit like that. So she says, hey, Dad, you promised me this. So what does she do? She leaves. So he sends his warriors after her. She leaves and starts her own kingdom, knocks these niggas off and starts Burkina Faso. So when you find Yaninga, she is gangster. There's a statue of her. And when you start doing this research of these African queens, because you remember, we're told that the women are this and women are that. Again, the other women, you got the Dahomey. They're called Dahomey Amazons, but that's the term the French gave them. The Dahomey warriors are females, killing motherfuckers. You know, and hence the Dahomeys. Now fast forward to Haiti. Who's one of the fathers of the Haitian Revolution? You got goddamn, Toussaint Louverture, and you got Dessalines, and you got Mackandal. Well, I think Dessalines was raised by this woman who was a Dahomey Amazon. Well, so his adopted mother is this Dahomey. She teaches this nigga how to fight. So he's learning how to fight from day one. From day one, he's learning how to fight. So when you find out about the Haitian Revolution and you find out the connections, like, your love of yourself can do nothing but grow. But again, go back to my original point about Bass Reeves and Lone Ranger. As Black folks, we're not told the stories of the ones that got away. But that's not true. They're staring you in your face. The ones that got away are staring you in your face. Your father, my great-grandfather, our ancestors are the ones that got away. The whole idea that this slavery thing was all-encompassing. The whole idea that Black folks weren't here already. The whole idea, we don't realize which cities were founded by Black folks. Senegal Village, Black folks had a city in New York, and they ran them Black folks off. And guess what they did with Senegal Village, which is Seneca, is, of course, Central Park. The Haitian man that discovered Chicago, Black man, Black city. Los Angeles was founded by Pico. It was Pio Pico, Black man.
Okay, but hold on.
California.
Esteban, only known by his first name, was an enslaved African in the service of the Spaniards when they came up from Mexico into the California area. So they came up from Mexico into California. He realized that the areas of California and New Mexico and Colorado and part of Arizona, he located these areas because there were Native Americans there. But he went there and he met with the Native Americans in the area. And he went back and told this to the Spaniards, which they then began to map out these areas based on his descriptions. Yeah, an African was there.
Who is California named after, my brother? Do you know? Khalifa, African princess.
Yeah, I've heard that story.
So what I'm saying is our fingerprints are all over history. It's not Black History Month. It's just History Month. But we're told to believe, or even you know, being from the Midwest, being from Nebraska, we knew about Lewis and Clark, but we also knew about who helped Lewis and Clark, the slave by the name of York. Look up York. Now, was he a slave or was he part of the mission? We don't know. But York was known for navigating and doing some other incredible shit. So, look.
Listen, he was a dude that was driving. He was like, "Hey, we not going over here.
Make a left here.
These motherfuckers over here like to fight, so we gonna keep going past. Like this shit's over here is dangerous. We got to keep it moving."
Yeah, if I fuck with you, I'm not gonna eat, nigga. I'm gonna end up dead in this motherfucker. Follow me. I know some shit. I got people already over here. Christopher Columbus. The first time I found out about this is that I told the story before, so I don't like telling the same stories. But one of my high school teachers told me, like, "Hey, I went to Berkeley. They have the log for Christopher Columbus. He says when he gets lost, these Moors gave him directions. When he says Moors, he means black folks. Moors are black folks. These Moors gave him directions to the land. So there were Moors going back and forth between the two continents. Well, we're trying to shed light on shit that people didn't get. You know, and this is one of the things I wanted to bring up earlier when we talked about some of the history you don't know. We already talked about George Washington Carver. We get it. You know, they cut his nuts off. He was adopted by a family in Iowa, blah, blah, blah. But also he was the first black doctorate at Iowa State. So when you want to learn about George Washington Carver, you need to understand that Iowa State has a lot of his artifacts, a lot of his artwork. You know, a lot of this guy was an artist. He's not just a super inventor. You must recognize that Henry Ford came down to him while he was, I think, was he at Morehouse or Clark? I guess he was studying at Morehouse, whatever. So Henry Ford comes to him like, "Hey, I need some help with this." The idea of the mass assembly, the product line, the word plant, all that comes from George Washington Carver and Henry Ford's relationship with him. Don't forget.
Okay, so we're bringing this now into the 20th century. And so at the very beginning of the 20th century, there was a black man named Alexander Miles who was born in 1835. And he invented automatic doors for elevators. So he is the whole reason we got these Star Trek type doors on elevators. That guy. He's the whole reason that we have, when you go to a grocery store and you have them doors that open like Star Trek, he's the guy, because that comes from an elevator design that he invented, Alexander Miles. Yeah. And then there's people like Shirley Ann Jackson, the inventor of the caller ID and call waiting. Yes. So she is a juggernaut in the tech industry that doesn't get enough recognition. But a person that you may not know about, Duct Tape, is Marie Van Britten Brown. She created the prototype for the first home security system using video cameras and remote mechanical door openers. So when a person goes to a door and they want to ring the buzzer and they want to talk to somebody on the other side of that door, well, before you can buzz that person through, you want to see who it is. She created the system, the prototype to the system, tying all these things together: a video camera, a mechanical door opener connected to the buzzer. She created all that stuff. Yep.
See, I work for the railroad, so the guy that I like, Andrew Jackson Beard. Now, there's another guy out there, but Andrew Jackson Beard is known for the coupler between rail cars. He invented that. He had the patent. He had the rights, $4,000. He designed a lot of different stuff. There's a couple brothers that had a bunch of railroad patents. Who's the brother that had the Pine Bluff Railroad? I think Wally Jackson. He owned the railroad down in Pine Bluff. Black folks have been part of railroading from day one. You know, we hear about Union Pacific, we hear about Burlington Northern, but black folks owned railroads. You know, we also manufactured cars. You know, when it came to manufacturing, we were huge in this industry. We're just not told that. You know, this Andrew Jackson Beard was a slave. So unlike most people, he didn't get his invention stolen by white folks, which is extraordinary in and of itself. Granville T. Woods, we know about him because of the telephone. But is he the one who invented the telephone, or is he the one who just simply wrote the patents, the pictures of it? There's so many of us lost in history.
Mark Dean is an African American man that owns 3 of the 9 original patents that IBM has. So that basically, okay, listen, IBM was originally a Nazi company, for those of you that don't know, because that was the computer that was used to tabulate all the information for the concentration camps. But when they became modernized and they moved into the digital computer age, it was Mark Dean who created 3 of the original 9 patents for IBM in the original PC computer system. He also created the system that ties peripherals together. So basically the precursor to USB and FireWire and Thunderbolt connections. He created the wires connecting these peripherals together, the fax machine to the computer and the printer and all these things. He tied them all together with his inventions. So Mark Dean is another person that to this day we use a lot of his stuff and we take it for granted and don't realize that he was the one who created a lot of this stuff.
Also, when it comes to the rotary engine, the rotary engine for cars, which is the Wankel, is named for Alexander Wankel, I think it is. But that's a rotary engine in cars. That's the one that's in the RX-7. Rotary engines have been around for a while. But the original inventor of the rotary engine for railroading was this guy, Andrew Jackson Beard. So when you look up the inventor of the rotary engine, you're going to see the one in cars, but there's also one that's invented before that in the 1800s by this brother right here that was invented for railroading. Again, railroading was influenced by black folks, and not just because we built the railroad, but we also built the industry in the mechanics of it also. That we're told, like, again, they love to give the slave narrative, but if we were just slaves, ain't no slave going to have this kind of knowledge. So was slavery just a job that some people had and they were super intelligent?
No.
Or is it this?
No. See, okay, let me stop you right there. You have a lot of people that want to create this revisionist history when there were certain situations where that African person was enslaved to a white person that was somewhat benevolent. So be careful.
No.
Wait. Hold on. Be careful. So be careful when people want to get revisionist with history and say, "Oh, it was a job, it was a choice." And man.
No. That's not what I'm saying. No, hold it. Let me explain myself a little bit better. What I'm saying, not every circumstance was the same. And I'm not talking about good white folks because I don't want to talk about good white folks. What I'm saying is that this slave was a super intelligent person. Now, how did that slave get intelligent? If a slave couldn't read, if it was illegal to teach a slave how to read, how did this nigga get smart is what I'm trying to, you're missing what I'm saying. He was already intelligent. Some of these people came over as indigent servants. These people were already intelligent people. Some of these people were already here. If you wasn't teaching a slave how to do shit, how could this man write pat? So what I'm saying is there are aberrations, but I think there's more aberrations than we're told about. And I'm thinking that look, the story of slavery is just a way to keep us down also. The whole story fucks with you. That's what I'm saying. Now, I'm not talking about no damn good white folks. Fuck that shit. I'm not talking about Sally Hemings and, well, she was in love with Thomas Jefferson. How the fuck do you know? Was he raping her every day? That was his property. So no. I'm not, that's Roscoe. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, how the fuck is this nigga that smart? That's what I'm saying. I'm saying there's more to this story than we're being told. I'm telling you that, of course, we're not told about the ones that got away because it's much more the ones getting away. Because you don't want that out there. Because if you knew the story of the ones that got away, we may rise up right now and get away from what we're dealing with right now. Nobody wants to talk about that story. The reason that story is stifled is because it might inspire you to beat a motherfucker's ass and get what you got coming. That's why we don't like, when you talk about the Black Panthers, yeah, they shot some cops. Yeah, they shot some firemen. But why don't you talk about the motherfucking Head Start program? Head Start that's in schools right now, that was started by the Black Panthers. The breakfast program that's used in schools right now was started by the Black Panthers. So you need to, that's what I'm saying. So, were they this or were they that? All I'm simply saying is, how can a slave be that smart? Is that what you're telling me is a slave wasn't taught to read, that the slave wasn't given anything. Either he had the shit to begin with, or that nigga acquired his knowledge just by being around this shit. So that means he was still smarter than you, still more capable than you. And like I said, white supremacy is put in place to keep you alive and keep you relevant, because if left to my own devices, you wouldn't even exist, motherfucker. That's what I'm saying. Okay. Sorry. Proceed, my
Continue with technology. 3D photography was created in the 1800s. It was created by a white person. It wasn't a black person. But fast forward to 1980, and there is a black African-American physicist. Her name is Valerie Thomas. She received the patent for the illusion transmitter. So this illusion transmitter
She's dope.
Is the reason why you were able to see Tupac at Coachella 8 years ago. This whole concept of projecting a hologram is based off of her designs. So she is the reason that there are hologram images presented in public now, is because she created the patent for the illusion transmitter. In 1991, I was in an arcade and I saw this game called, I think it was called The Time Machine, Sega game called The Time Machine or Time Travel, something like that. So, and basically what this was, it was this game, it was about chest high and it was white and it had a dark stage. It was a stage. So in the area where there would be the screen, there was an empty dark space and then there was a bowl inside there. And so basically what was happening was there was inside this game console, there was a laser disc that was projecting onto her patented project or her patented design, which was this illusion transmitter. So it projected through this projector from the laser disc onto the silver dome up into this dark space, creating a projection that looked like it was a hologram or was a hologram. And Valerie Thomas is the person responsible for these holograms you see today. So here's the thing now. That you keep hearing in, conspiracy chatter that if there's going to be an alien invasion anytime soon, that there's going to be holograms projected in the sky. The only problem with that is a black person created the modern hologram and they're using her technology for evil. So there you go. Valerie Thomas, thank you very much for some cool ass shit. Yo.
This is us like talk about fucked up black history. This is the black history that you weren't taught. How much of the cell phone was invented by a sister? You talk about Dr. Dean. Most of the patents for PCs, 4 or 3 of the major patents were Dr. We have had our fingerprints on everything. We are not just entertainers. We're not just athletes. We are everything, and we're way ahead of what people give us credit for. And when you speak of history, the idea that you have to have 1 month for history, no, we are a part of it. We are history. We've been here. We've always been here. And the idea that you got to get permission to appreciate yourself is, I have a serious problem with. Fuck that shit. Man, Roscoe, listen, I'm not gonna ever say it's hard being black, but it just drives you crazy when you find out more and more shit, and the narrative ain't what you were told.
Here's the thing. Here's the problem. When your existence challenges the mere structure of the narrative, that is the reality that we live, it's a problem for the people in control. So either you submit to this or you bide your time and you put out information and you keep fighting until the information gets out there and you wind up putting these time-release aspirin ninja mind bombs into everybody's head and it makes them wake up. It's the Osiris virus. So that's the thing, is getting truth to people so that they can make informed decisions for themselves and begin to question and speak out and vote against things that will change, that will change the way the world used to be into something that resembles what it should be.
Well, I guess another brother out there, Henry Thompson Sampson Jr., you will love this one, was an American inventor and film historian who created the gamma electric cell in 1971, a device with the main goal of generating auxiliary power from shielding of a nuclear reactor. Look, we have parts to all this. These names ain't commonplace on purpose. That information ain't out there on purpose. And if the information was out there, then you couldn't treat me the way you treat me, because I would love myself and respect myself more. So,
in regard to the narrative that you've been pushed as far as black history is concerned, there's names like Rosa Parks that you're told are these, bastions of resistance. And Rosa did do her part, respect to her. But there's people that came before her that were on that same path who fought, like Irene Morgan Kirkcaldy. And
she went to San Francisco?
In Virginia. In 1944, she was arrested after she refused to give up her bus seat to a white passenger in Virginia. And she was convicted in a county circuit court, but they appealed the decision to the Virginia Supreme Court and later to the Supreme Court itself. So with the help of lawyers from the NAACP, including Thurgood Marshall, the Supreme Court ruled in her favor. This was in 1944. So this is way before Rosa Parks. And then after her was Claudette Colvin. And Claudette Colvin was a 15-year-old high school student on March 2nd, 1955, who was exhausted from a long day of school and simply wasn't having that shit. She's like, fuck y'all, I'm not fucking moving. But what it was with Rosa Parks, everything fit at the right time. So here was another young black girl that's fighting against the system and resisting clearly and openly. And everybody jumped on it because it was the right time for it to happen. So if you look back at these other two cases in 44 and then 55, these people were the same as Rosa Parks in speaking out, but the climate was not yet ripe for overturning the apple cart. All you could do back then was explain and complain about how rotten the apples were.
Was it Rosa that was like an investigator? Hold on. Rosa Parks was a sexual assault investigator. She literally was like a cop. So there's stories of her sitting on her porch with a pistol so white folks wouldn't mess with her. What people don't realize, she was much more gangster than you know because of what she did for a living. That's why she wasn't willing to get up, because she was packing.
She was packing. I will shoot you, motherfuckers.
Yeah. Parks resisted.
Rosa was by the Second Amendment.
It's part of the rape of Ray C. Taylor. Like, long story short, I think she was like CSI. That's what she did for a living. So the reason this is important, because why would you not tell me that Rosa Parks was gangster? Because you don't want me to get that wrong idea. So you talk about her
because they want you to be docile. They want you to be a good Negro.
And look, like I said, I know we got to wrap this episode up, but I just need you guys to understand that the reason these stories don't exist is because they do exist. They're not pushed. They don't want you to be smart. They don't want you to stand up for yourself. Even right now, the pussification of America is going strong. I remember when I was in grade school, if me and Russell got in a fight with each other, they would call our parents, but we was at school the next day, eating graham crackers together. But nowadays, you in a fight, they suspend you for 7 days and put you in anger management and fuck that shit. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, right. Agreed on that shit.
It doesn't work like that.
Agreed on that shit.
So when people do that shit, what they're doing is they're making you weak so you can't resist. They're cutting out your tongue, not because you're a threat, because they don't want you to be smart. They don't want you to join together. They don't want you to resist what the fuck they're doing to you.
Because they don't want you to know who you are. Because without knowledge of self, there is no knowledge. You are just a savage, and you will do as you're told within the bounds that they create for you, which is why you have to have plenty of information about who your ancestors are, so you can then make better decisions about your future with self-confidence and self-empowerment and self-determination. Kuji Chagalia.
Please look up these people we talked about today, and please don't. The only way you can be a slave is without knowledge, and knowledge is everywhere. You have the internet. Stop looking at Facebook for your answers. Look up shit and be the God and the goddesses that you were meant to be. Be Elohim. Be the powerful ones. That's all we're asking. And find more of these stories on your own. And just when you watch these dates, just look at these dates. Look when slavery started and ended, and look at what was being done before slavery and after slavery. Slavery is a blip on the fucking is a fucking wart on the butt of life. Don't stop acting like that's the only history that matters. That's not. There was history before that. And when you start looking at these dates and you seeing what black people were doing before slavery, you recognize that slavery has very little meaning at all.
How about them apples? So as time goes on and as people are utilizing these databases online to go and dig up more and more information, and as more and more older books are being converted into digital PDFs, a lot more of this information that were only in university libraries or in private collections are now available to the public, which means that there will be more and more black heroes that begin to spring up as we sort through the sands of time, digging up these people who did these great things for our people. So therefore, continue to search and find those black African heroes in history's dustbin. They are there. They are there. We just have to dig them up.
Like you dig into the crates for them records? dig through the crates for your identity and your
For your
ancestors.
ancestors.
That's all.
Yeah. Go digging in the crates for your ancestors. And that is it for this episode. We out. Peace.
Holla back.